Hi, everybody. John here from Word Balloon. Before we start the show, a couple quick show notes. If you haven't noticed, Word Balloon has been upping its video output at our YouTube channel, wordballoon.com. It also posts on my Facebook page under John Suntress. If you have a chance and haven't done it already, please like the videos, subscribe to Word Balloon's YouTube channel. It'll give you the opportunity to participate in live streaming conversations that I've been having with my guests. They have also been flipped to audio programs as well. It's likely that the episode you're listening to right now is not only a Word Balloon audio podcast, but also a video podcast over there at YouTube. Questions or comments about the show, reach me via email, john@wordballoon.com. Thank you very much for your support during this weird time. I've gotten a lot of great emails from all of you, and it really means a lot. We're getting ready to start. There might be another commercial before we start the program. As always, thanks for your attention. Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon. This is John Suntress. Great conversation with Paul Kupperberg that the gods were conspiring against me to put this thing out. We tried to do a video interview and Paul didn't have a headset, so his voice is kind of wonky. It's still up on my Word Balloon YouTube channel, but I didn't feel like it was air quality to make a podcast out of it. That said, we tried a second time on a Skype audio call, and that didn't record properly. So finally, on my iPhone, using my call recorder app, I did an hour-long conversation with Paul. It went great. The sound really is a phone-to-phone conversation, but that's okay. It's still definitely air quality, good enough. And you can hear him. He's telling great stories about a lot of his writing career. And also, he's got a Kickstarter campaign that literally is in the final days, and I wanted to get this out to help him promote it. Search for Paul Kupperberg on Kickstarter for his How to Write Comics illustrated book that he has just put out with illustrations from Joe Staten. It is really great. Paul is a 45-year vet of the comic book business, going back to Charlton Comics and then amazing runs at DC. He was also an editor at Weekly World News, and he worked for Crazy, the Marvel competitor to Mad Magazine in the 70s into the early 80s. A very interesting career. So many versions of Superman stories, Superman proper and regular Superman and Action Comics, but also he did the comic strip of Superman in the late 70s, early 80s. He also worked on Supergirl and Superboy and the Superman family dollar comics of the late 70s and early 80s. Unbelievable stuff. Great runs on amazing characters. We talk about all of that on this edition of Word Balloon. I hope you'll like it. It's all brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. Hey, League, truly, thank you for your support. It is a very tough time. I have been impacted by the COVID virus. I'm okay. Health-wise, I'm fine, but I just got downsized. My radio job. I'm fine, and what can you do? I'm shrugging right now, but the good news is I've got online sponsors like Aftershock Comics, like the League of Word Balloon listeners, that are helping me stay afloat, and I really appreciate it. So, again, I wouldn't want anyone to spend money that they can't afford to spend. Word Balloon is free. I want this program out there for as many people as possible to enjoy and share and keep what we love about comics in our heads and in our ears and with our eyes on the videos I make as we get through this tough time. And I'm okay that I'll be able to, still make this stuff. But if you can help the cause and you can spare it, if you could subscribe to Word Balloon, is Word Balloon worth $1 a month to you? Is it worth the price of a comic book a month to you? If you think so, if you like this content and haven't subscribed before, I could use your help. You can go to patreon.com/wordballoon, or you can click on the Patreon ad on the front page of wordballoon.com. But I greatly thank you for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners. Word Balloon is also brought to you by Aftershock Comics, who remind you to get in touch with your local comic store. Hey, we're all struggling through this thing, and the comic shops especially. If you haven't already done it, call your local shop, see what can be done in terms of arranging curbside service or deliveries of comics. I know a lot of stores are doing that. They're accepting gift certificates now. Take advantage of their back stock. because, yeah, we're not getting new comics, but a comic you haven't read is still new to you. Aftershock wants you to remind you of that, but also they want you to let you know that they've got a ton of great comic books that are waiting that you can also order digitally. We're talking about great runs on things like Animosity from Marguerite Bennett and Raphael de la Tour, and volumes of Baby Teeth with Donny Cates and Gary Brown. You can get Jimmy's Bastards, a wonderful collection of Garth Ennis's stuff, the complete edition. You can get Cullen Bunn has done so many great books for Aftershock. From Witch Hunter to Night Temporal, and also Dark Arc, his wonderful series with Juan Doe. Tim Seeley's got the first arc of Dark Red available for you. Paul Jenkins has tons of books. Phil Hester's Stronghold. So many really great Aftershock books that my friends have made over the last few years that are worthy of your attention. Go to their website. You'll find full story descriptions, preview art pages, and the way to order these books at AftershockComics.com. All right, without further ado, let's get into it now. A really fun conversation with Paul Kupperberg, who is got this new Kickstarter book on how to write comics, and I think it's an amazing tool. Go to his website, too. He blogs script examples and short stories that he's done over the years, book proposals, fascinating stuff that will help you and are great tools for aspiring writers. Paul Kupperberg, now on Word Balloon.
Well, this guest has been incredibly patient with me. I've been trying to record a podcast conversation with Paul Kupperberg for like the last 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, Paul.
Well, the undead, our voice doesn't always record.
The ever immortal Paul Kupperberg. Welcome back to Word Balloon.
Hi, John. Good to be here. Thanks.
Hey, I'm sorry because there's only a day and a half left, and I'll do my damnedest to flip this thing quickly. So you get a little play out of it, and people get to go to your Kickstarter. But you've got a wonderful campaign that has been underway. I'm glad you met your goal, but people need to be aware of this, especially right now when people have time and, hey, I'm going to learn how to play a guitar, I'm going to paint, I'm going to do these things. And I'm sure a lot of aspiring comic book writers are thinking about, writing their comic, and they could use your help. So tell us about your Kickstarter campaign.
Well, it's for my book, Paul Kupperberg's Illustrated Guide to Writing Comics. It's a step-by-step from plot to art how-to guide on writing comic books based on my 45 years and 1,400 or so stories that I've written.
That's excellent, man. And really, all someone has to do is go through your bibliography and some of the significant runs you've had on Superman, Superboy, the Legion of Superheroes, Supergirl, Power Girl. That's all the DC stuff. The Life with Archie, the Death of Archie, and a ton of Charlton comics in the mix as well. So, you know what you're doing, man. 45 years in the biz,
I hope I've learned something along the way, and hopefully I've been able to put it down on paper and to pass it along.
Not only as a writer, but also as an editor too, Paul. I mean, that's the thing. I think
sure.
You're a good judge of work beyond being a writer yourself.
Sure. Well, it's an interesting perspective to go from. I went from being a writer for many years to sitting behind an editor's desk, and it forces you to reevaluate the way you book it. Even at your own writing, because suddenly you're seeing it from the point of view of the other side of the desk, and so it gives you an interesting perspective. And I've worked with some interesting people along the way. I picked up some interesting tips from them, which I've tried to include in the book. And I figured, I can't. Everybody writes in their own way. Everybody has their own method, and all I can do is show you how I do it. Take you through the steps that I use to create stories, and hopefully you'll be able to kind of figure it out and work out a system of your own that works for you.
That's great, man. Well, again, not only recent work, but this is work that goes back, from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and into the 2010s. And then here we are in the 20s, and you're still you're still writing some great stuff. And
thank you.
Absolutely, man. And with the Neo Charlton group, is that how you say it? Or am I okay?
It's Charlton Neo Media, which is in fact publishing the writing the guide to writing comics. Yeah, we've been publishing for about 5 or 6 years now. We do our own little thing here and there. We took up the old Charlton Comics name because nobody's been using it since 1985, and we just started putting out our own stuff. It's myself and Mort Todd and Roger McKenzie, and we've published stories. We did the first new E-Man story by Nick Cuddy and Joe Staten. We published that a few years back. So we've got a lot of good stuff in the comics, and it's been a lot of fun to do. We're able to kind of indulge our comic geek and finally get to do the stuff we want to do.
I also point people to your website, and it's actually, I think, a good indication to do both. Check out the Kickstarter, but go to your website as well, because you've got script samples there, wonderful little short comic book stories as well over the years are represented there, and you're a pack rat. You keep a lot of the stuff, and I'm glad that you have, because that's really a nice glimpse of not only your own career, but really the direction of some of the companies went in, over the years as well.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, I've been in the last, since my divorce 12 years ago, I've started kind of, packing up and finding stuff that I hadn't seen in 20, 30, 40 years in some cases. And, so I started scanning it and putting it up on the website and on my Facebook page. And the last few days I've just been kind of going through, now in the time of plague, just to entertain myself and others, just been going through my hard drive and, throwing random images and stuff that I've got scans of up there to, and there's notes from Joe Simon and Dick Sprang and, sketches by, a whole bunch of people, just, a bunch of stuff from around 1970 when the Kinney Corporation owned Warner Communications.
Yes.
And they published this in-house publication. And there was a strip called Super Kinney in it that was done by the likes of Al Pacino and Kurt Swan. They're kind of little comic strips. And I think Nelson Bridwell wrote them. But they were kind of highlighting the services of Kinney, of the Kinney Corporation, everything from, parking lots to funeral homes and comic books somewhere in the middle.
Steve Ross, was he the big wig at Kinney, or am I confusing him with a different Warner big wig?
Excuse me?
Steve Ross, was he the big wig, the CEO?
Steve Ross was the was the CEO of that whole Warner Brothers Kinney, mismatch. I mean, yeah. I think his family or his wife's family owned parking lots and funeral homes.
Yeah, because I recall.
Yeah, and he just kind of, and Warner Brothers was, up for cheap. I mean, a guy who owned parking lots bought Warner Brothers, and that's when that whole conglomeration thing started.
That's amazing. And was National Comics, the publishing company of DC, was that a separate company, or had Warner already absorbed it? How did that work?
Yeah, no, National was just kind of I think National Periodicals was, I think, the legal or a legal corporate name or something. I forget exactly how it worked, but there was, for years on the bullet on the cover, it would be, DC National Superman. So you'd have all of that in there. DC was always kind of the popular name, I guess, and in reality the corporate name was National something, or probably, when it was a privately owned company under Leibowitz and what's his name, there was probably all kinds of shells and different companies protecting it. Probably each title was its own company or something,
Sure, but did Kinney buy DC, or did Warner buy DC and then Kinney bought Warner?
I think Warner's bought DC and then Kinney bought Warner, but I'm not sure.
Okay,
I'm not
no
sure.
worries, man. Well, that's all right. Business 101 is over, and we'll get we'll get back to the comics. Your website is great because, again, you find all this stuff, and I was surprised, since our aborted conversations that didn't make it to air, you had one custom comic that intrigued me, and it was great. It was promoting the Organic Theater here in Chicago, and I'm a big fan, and I know a lot of great actors that came from the Organic Theater, and great plays as well. And this is kind of, it describe, because custom comics are these, for people who don't know, and you'll likely add to my description, corporate comics are made to, for promotional purposes. The American Dental Association might have the Avengers fighting tooth decay, or...
I edited, when I was in licensed publishing at DC, I edited Superman for the Animals for the Doris Day Animal Foundation.
Amazing.
I edited Batman and Robin fighting Poison Ivy for Claritin. I did Superman meets the race car champions. It was Superman meeting 7 NASCAR drivers.
Was Doris Day in the comic for the pets?
I think Day was one of them. Yeah.
Oh, she was actually in the comic.
She?
Yeah. Was she? Did she appear? Okay. I know it's for a charity.
This was in 2000.
Okay, and I understand it was for a charity, but there's those great Silver Age and Bronze Age moments where Alan Funt.
You're talking about Doris Day?
Yeah.
No. This was a Superman. Actually, Mark Miller wrote it.
Okay, hilarious.
It was a nice little story. About confronting kids, who were abusing animals, and showing how that leads to.
Yeah.
But
no, I was wondering if there was just that added celebrity layer of Pat Boone showing up in Superman, or Alan Funt, or some of the other older celebrities.
No, that would have been awesome, though.
Yeah, man.
Work with Doris Day.
Absolutely.
So anybody hired DC. The most famous one is this guy hired DC to create a custom Superman comic for his son's bar mitzvah.
Yeah.
Which includes no kidding.
I know. Go on.
It includes, it's an original story written by Carrie Bates and drawn by Kurt Swan.
Oh, I thought Marty wrote it. Marty didn't write it.
You're right. Marty wrote it. Yes.
Okay, because I've talked to Marty about this before on the podcast. Yeah. Continue, please.
Yeah, it's like the Superman and the Berkowitz bar mitzvah, and the story involves Superman and the kids, the bar mitzvah boy and whatever the adventure was, but the Organic Theater thing was done in 1980. It was hired. I wrote it. Joe Staten drew it, and we were hired to create this subscription drive custom comic that was mailed out to whoever in the Chicagoland area, and also was an insert in the Chicago Reader a couple of times, I think. I lived out there at the time, so I was a semi-regular at the Organic Theater. I saw a lot of productions there.
That's amazing, man.
Including the original Warp. So. Yeah,
Warp was there, which is incredible, and then also a couple. I was going to say, Bleacher Bums is a very great
I love
play.
Dennis Franz. That's the first time I ever saw Dennis Franz.
And Joe Montana.
I saw the PBS production of it.
Yes, in the 70s, which, by the way, is available on YouTube.
Oh, is it? Oh, cool.
Absolutely, it is.
I'm going to check that out.
It's amazing because, man, it was, literally, 43 years ago.
Oh, yeah,
Richard
or
Pryor something like that.
Yeah.
Yes. And, that's the great thing is, you'll recognize several of the actors, but it's this wonderful live play that's happening in the stands during a Cubs game. And as a veteran of Chicago for 55 years, I can attest to its authenticity of the kind of the gamblers and the people that are there just to get a suntan, and the diehard Cubs fans when the Cubs suck. Oh, it was beautiful, man. It's a great play. And then another great play, originally called Sexual Perversity in Chicago.
Right.
And I write that became About Last Night. Am I correct?
That was the David Mamet.
Yes, his first play, his first breakthrough play, and then of course About Last Night's been remade a couple times, but the original cast was Rob Lowe and Demi Moore and Jim Belushi, 80s movie. Yeah. So no, the organic certainly had a lot of great people come out of it. I can't remember, was William Peterson organic theater as well?
Which what?
Or maybe not. He might have been Remains. William Peterson from CSI, the original CSI.
I don't know. I don't know.
He was. I mean, he was certainly in the Chicago theater scene back then.
Yeah,
that was Joan Allen. Joan Allen, I know, was at Steppenwolf. I lived right around the corner.
I lived right around the corner from Steppenwolf. I went there too. I saw
that's
some.
Awesome.
Yeah. I lived on. I was right near Howard Street. I was on West Fargo. That was it.
Sure. There you go. Very nice, man. Absolutely. I'm in the city. I know where you were at. That's wonderful. I love talking to guys like you and John Ostrander and Mike Gold, the first comic guys. And Warp, wasn't Warp, was Warp out of Eclipse or First Comics?
First Comics. Yeah.
I thought so. Yeah.
The organic, the Weird Organic comic was kind of a trial balloon for First Comics almost. It was like
cool.
the first. Yeah. Although I wasn't really involved in anything to do with First, but.
I hear you, man. But no, this is a great, and I mean, Joe Staten really kind of shown a very indie style with the way that this thing was done. It's on your website. It's a post from March.
Yes.
March 10th.
Yeah. I put up
the post right now.
The whole comic. Yes.
And then another custom comic that you just put up recently, or no, I guess not. Excuse me. Maybe it was last year. The Mystery of the 1970s Green Lantern custom comic. And you did this great little mini comic for General Foods Canada, of all places.
Yes, I had found the script, and didn't remember writing it. Didn't remember what it was for. It wasn't labeled, particularly well. So I posted the script, and several people popped up with, "Oh no, that's this," and sent me scans. So I could finally see what the thing turned into.
That's amazing, man. And it was, I guess, was it in breakfast cereal? Yeah, it was in 1981 Post cereal.
I think it might have. Was it bread? Was it bread or cereal?
I'm looking at the post, and it says John Wells figured it out. One of 9 mini comics in a 1981 Canadian Post cereal giveaway series.
Oh, okay.
Which also included Superman, Aquaman, Hawkman, Supergirl, Batgirl, Batman, Wonder Woman, and The Flash. Wow. And, I always find the timing interesting because, you get when, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman show up on a corporate thing. But it is interesting when they dip a little further and who is chosen. And obviously these are all Justice League members. Yeah. But, it's like, 1981,
I think you need to think more Super Friends than Justice League,
Okay, absolutely, and that makes a lot more sense. I was going to say why these particular characters, but you're right. I think, of course, on Challenge of the Super Friends, Hawkman and Green Lantern were certainly there. So that makes and Flash. That makes a lot of sense. Very cool. Mm-hmm. Too funny, man. Well, and then
that's what the public is familiar with. The general reading public had no idea what Justice League was, but they certainly knew what the Super Friends were.
Makes sense. Absolutely. Digging through your bibliography, and it's something we covered in the previous unrecorded conversation, so I'll make you tell the story again. You wrote Jack Kirby's last comics story.
Well, his last regularly published comic book work was the 1985, I think, Superpowers miniseries that I wrote. Yeah, it was, I guess, the second of those. I got the assignment. Andy Helfer was the editor. I got the assignment, and at the time, I don't think Jack had committed to draw the thing yet, because I had no idea he was going to be the artist on the thing until I actually saw the art. So I wrote these full scripts, and the next thing I know, they're drawn by Jack Kirby.
Amazing. That's awesome.
No, it was. It's just, there's never thought I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of great artists, that from my past and comics past and all that, and but I never thought I'd get a Kirby story.
That's really
yet I got 6. So
yeah, man, 6 issues, absolutely. Did you get a chance to get any of the art from that or no?
No, never did.
Well, we understand. That's
I did know somebody who had the pencils of an entire issue because Greg Theakston didn't ink them on the boards; he inked them on overlays, so the pencils still exist.
Wow, that's amazing.
So I knew somebody who owned the complete pencils. I think number 3, but that's the closest I ever got.
I mean, everyone always points to Joe Sinnott, as the classic, one of the classic inkers for Kirby, but I liked Greg Theakston. I know poor Kirby. I mean, this was near the end, and his art was certainly a little more chunkier than his prime. But it's okay. I mean, an artist's journey is an artist's journey, and what they're doing at the end, I know you understand that. Sometimes I'll hear other podcasters kind of complain about where the artist is at the end, and it's like, hey man, let's see you against 20-year-old yourself run a 50-yard dash against each other and see how well old guy does against young guy. Yeah, man. And look very carefully at what you're putting down, because even though it might not have the same bang and flair that the older stuff does, it's still got 70 years worth of experience behind it. And look at what you're looking at and see it. It's all there. It may not be as well drawn as it would have been a few years earlier, but there's nothing to complain about. Your work has been in every genre, and I want to talk about some of the humor work you did. You worked for Crazy, from 76 to 82. Did you have any? Were there regular features in Crazy, or was it all parody?
I did most. Well, I was the regular writer of the movie parodies, and there was a centerfold Crazy Looks At, which was a big centerfold that. Oh man, I'm blanking on his name. Really good artist. He'll come back to me. Anyway, what
were some of the movies? What were some of the movies you parodied?
Oh man, the first one I did was Star Trek. That was Star Wars. I mean, that was my very first movie parody.
Wow. Do you remember your artist for some of these?
Yeah, it was my brother.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Has it ever been republished? Does Lucas own it technically, or?
No,
I guess Marvel.
Marvel. No, it's a Marvel thing. I mean, I think they reprinted it in annuals and stuff over the years. But
okay.
And I went on all kinds of movies. I did a couple of the Superman movies, another one or two Star Wars movies, Star Trek at least one. I think that was Bob Camp's first comic book work, was a Star Trek parody I wrote for Crazy.
That's crazy. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And oh god, whatever was coming out. Yeah, I did The Shining. That was painful, man. I do not like Stephen King.
It's a disturbing movie. I have to. I mean, I didn't.
No, it wasn't disturbing. I had to see it in the Chicago theater.
Okay, sure.
Before the renovation.
Yes.
Think back to 1979, 1980 in the Chicago theater.
Yeah,
there were more rats in the auditorium.
Yeah, like the 2,000-year-old man. Too many rats, not enough cats. Absolutely.
Yes,
man.
Exactly. And so I had to sit there with my feet up because with my feet up on the seats because they were wrong. And also, I don't like Stephen King. Yeah, nothing personal.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, but I did a whole ton of movies. I think I did Conan. I did Quest for Fire. The Black Hole.
Sure. Oh my God, the Black Hole.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, the Black Hole.
Ugh. Exactly, the Black Hole. Yeah, exactly. The Black Hole. because I stole, shamelessly from the old Mad comics and early Mad movie parodies. So. Sure, man. It was Mad, cracking crazy. Absolutely. And I can appreciate that. That's all right. Wow, man. So 6 years crazy. And was that primarily your Marvel output?
That was pretty much it. Yeah, I did. Other than Crazy, I've written a Captain America fill-in back in 77, 78, and then I wrote an issue of sort of Conan in the 90s.
Wow.
Yeah, that was it. And
Wow.
Crazy magazine. Yeah.
Pretty wild. Any of the other crazy artists that you collaborated with? I mean, Bob Cap and your brother are pretty amazing to start with.
Yeah.
So.
Bob McLeod.
Sure.
He did Apocalypse Now Land. Well, in order to monetize things, the army turned the military turned the river into a
an amusement park. That's fantastic.
Into an amusement park. Yeah. Things like that. God, I'm trying to remember who else. Bob Camp did them for a long time.
Cool.
A bunch of guys. Man, I'm trying. Yeah.
That's so crazy, man. No, that's the name. That's fantastic. I was certainly a Mad guy. I wasn't much of a Cracked or Crazy guy, I confess. But
Mad was probably the most influential magazine in the mid 20th century.
Yeah. No kidding, man. No, you're right. And no, it's the fact that the history of Mad is amazing, and it really disappointed me that DC has kind of. I mean, it's still coming out, but a lot of it's greatest hits stuff, and there's certainly enough greatest hits to, obviously populate a magazine that comes out quarterly. But I am disappointed that they kind of gave up trying to do new stuff. You have to face the economic reality sometimes, and
absolutely, and it's painful. It's the whole. I mean, crap. We're in the middle of probably the most major shift in the comics business in its history.
Yes.
With what's going on today, yesterday was the first time in forever that new comic books didn't ship.
Right. Even literally, as others have pointed out, even during World War II.
Even during World War II.
9/11, you name all the major tragedies of this country, and it never stopped the comics until now. Yeah.
And you got an industry, the direct market, which is built on on pennies margins of it's going to be grim. I think we're in for some major shifting. So.
No, I understand, man, and it's in a lot of industries, and I can even speak from personal experience. I got a rough call just before our conversation, letting me know that I was being furloughed from my my radio job. That's all right, buddy. It's okay, and it is what it is, and I'll adapt and do what I can. And thankfully, I've got good sponsors here at Word Balloon, and also the League of Word Balloon listeners, as I call my patrons from Patreon, helping me out, and then they are a great support, and I thank them for their continued patronage, and the fact that again, that's why I'm happy to provide this entertainment while we're not getting new comic books, to at least have comic book conversations and keep the culture alive.
You can still get comic books. There's still stuff out there you haven't read, and go online and look for the creators you like and see what they're doing. And, order their books online, order their comics online. You can go to crazy8press.com or mortod.com/Charlton. And, books of mine, my prose books and comic books that I've done are available. You can get them digitally. You can get them mailed to you. It's available.
Absolutely, man.
If you're not getting your product from DC and Marvel, there's still 8,000 people out there, and maybe, even 6 or 8 of them that you like, still producing material. So.
Absolutely. Well, and I want to mention, and I'm glad you mentioned your prose book. I wanted to talk about that, of course. Same Old Story, a terrific crime story set during the golden age of comics.
Thank you. Yes. It's a murder mystery set in the comic book industry of early 1950s during a bit of a downturn because of a distributor going bankrupt. And in the middle of this, my protagonist, a comic book and pulp writer, stumbles, happens across a real murder, and gets involved with it because it's. I'm explaining this so well. I imagine people diving for their computers right now to order this. Yes, there's a murder in the comic book industry, and my protagonist, who is a pulp writer who writes about a fictionalized version of his homicide detective dad, gets involved and writes, and the book is the story of what really goes on and how he fictionalizes it in his pulp story, and how fact and fiction sometimes get blurred for writers.
It's a great story. Don't worry, Paul.
Yeah,
I'll back you up. It was very
Don't
entertaining
listen
story.
to the writer. It's much better than he makes it sound.
Listen to the podcaster. I'm telling you, it's a fine story. It's excellent. Well, and again, it shows your versatility, because now I want to talk about a couple other things that you've written for DC. And one is really, we were talking about obviously Crazy. We mentioned Archie, and I'll talk a little bit more about Archie. But one of the darkest things you wrote was, of course, the Vigilante, or just Vigilante. And this is a character that sprung out of the classic Wolfman Perez run of Teen Titans. And you wrote the book for, 3 years. And you wrote its very gritty ending. And again, this is during the grim and gritty era. But I think this is one of the books that I think pulled it off in a classy way. And it felt, it was an adult comic book. It definitely was not for children. And by the way, a comic that I don't think could get published today.
No, I don't think the book I wrote would get published today.
Describe the character
at least not by the mainstream, by DC today.
Yeah.
It was, when you write enough superhero, and by that time I had written, my fair share of superheroes, including the superhero, Superman. For several years, I wrote, upwards of, a third or a quarter of Superman in action and issues of DC Comics Presents, and I was also writing Supergirl and Superboy and the Superman syndicated newspaper strip. So, plenty of superheroes, and I was kind of tired of it. And Vigilante was a chance to kind of do a ground level, more realistically based character, and it was great. It was just, very freeing, very, here's a storyline, where the consequences aren't some abstract, superhero cosmic scale, but it's, down to earth. It's just one-on-one. This is about stories about, individuals in very, very screwed up situations. And it was just great to write. It's just nobody has to fly. Nobody has to, explode a stick of dynamite between the cheeks of his ass. It was wonderful. I know Superman never really did that, but it sounds like something he would, just to show off.
He certainly could have done it, absolutely. Adrian Chase was the judge, and he became the Vigilante, a modern version of Vigilante that took the law in his own hands and took care of things and was not above killing to get the job done. And really, in his solo comic, his path became more and more self-destructive, and a very disturbing final issue that we will spoil, but still, it's the journey, it's not the destination, but he ends up killing himself at the end of the story. Yeah.
He, things escalated in the course of his quest to, find justice. His original intention was, judge, but he's handcuffed by the law himself. He can only do so much. So he was going to go out at night as Vigilante and right the wrongs that slipped past him as a judge. And, that way lies madness. So I made him go mad. And, he reaches a point, I think around issue number 37 or so, where he kills a cop. Not intentionally, but, he kills this guy. And that is just the final twist that for the next dozen or so issues until number 50, when it ended in the suicide, it was just him going further and further and deeper until, when I had him kill the cop, we didn't know the book would be ending in another, 13, 14 issues.
Yeah.
But I think at some point we would have realized that, there's only so far we can take this guy, At some point he's gonna hit the wall, and he's gonna have to finally see that in order to do the justice that he swore to do, he's got to take out another killer.
Yeah. No, it was very powerful, and I remember too there was a great postscript to the comic story that I believe you wrote. Am I correct?
In the issue, in number 50?
Yeah. Or did the editor write it? I think you wrote it or the editor wrote it, kind of explaining why.
Oh, in the letter column?
Yeah.
I think the editor wrote that.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay. But again, I mean, that's why it was really beyond, the regular comic. Okay, and he kills himself at the end. It's like, no, I think the company was responsible enough to kind of add that postscript of why the story had to go that way.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No,
And,
there's I mean,
No, it's fascinating. And again, a ballsy thing to put out there, not necessarily for the time, because, hell, there were 900 numbers to kill Robin at the time. And, we were reading Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen. So, again, this was at the height of that period. But, yes, I know today, I don't think AT&T would approve that. I don't think Disney certainly would approve that. So I can see that kind of story in one of the big two. Yeah, there you go. Here, we'll move on to your things. You mentioned your various runs on Superman. I was pointing out who the artist was for the comic strip that you did of Superman.
Oh yeah. Well, when I started, it was George Tusker was still on it.
Wow.
Vinnie Coletta inking.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, please. I'd worked with George before. He'd done Masters of the Universe miniseries.
Very cool. Yeah, Tima. Yeah.
And just a fan growing up. I mean, geez, George Tusker, a classic run on Iron Man in the 60s, and everything. Brilliant artist.
Absolutely,
great storyteller.
One of my Silver Age favorites. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Who took over after he and Vinny stopped doing, or did Vinny stay inking on?
Vinny stayed inking when Jose Delbo took over.
Okay, Jose Delbo, another great name. That's fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah. These guys, drawing a comic strip is very different than drawing a comic book, page, the way you approach it.
Sure.
And these guys were great because they understood that. They understood that, the art was going to be shrunk down, and that, lose detail and stuff. And, they drew for it. They didn't try to cram it full to make it, they were just really knew what they were doing. And then Vinny left the strip. I think he went over to Marvel, and Sal Trapani took over inking, and also did a nice job.
Oh wow, man! Well, and tell me, because I just had Terry Beatty on talking about writing and drawing comic strips that he's been doing. He had his run on the Phantom, and currently he does Rex Morgan.
Yeah,
absolutely. Mm-hmm. So writing a comic strip. How long were the stories? Were they 3 weeks, 4 weeks?
I was actually writing 10 and 12-week stories back then.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, and 4 panels a day, 3 panels a day? How many panels?
3 panels a day and a Sunday.
And a Sunday. And
until the Sunday became... The Sunday eventually, I think in the last year and a half or so, became a fun page, a puzzle page. So Bob Rozakis wrote that.
Of course. The Answer Man, absolutely.
The Puzzle Man, yes, the Answer Man.
Yeah, I have to. I met him at Terrificon last year. Yeah. And thankfully, I believe you vouched for me, and also Howard Chaikin. Both of you guys vouched for me to Bob, which was incredibly kind. And I'm like, thanks, guys. Because there's a million podcasts out there, and I understand when you meet somebody, it's like, all right, you got a podcast as well. God, I always get impressed when. I think it was on Brockmire. I love Brockmire on IFC. I think it's a very funny comedy. And there was a scene where it's like, come on, Grandma, you said you'd be a guest on my podcast. And I'm like, anyone can do it. So
I know. I'm asked to be on a lot of podcasts, and when I check them out, it's like 7 whole people listen to this.
Yeah, I know.
I think that. No, that's your grandma. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, no, I know. But that's why I've never started my own podcast. It's like, oh, good, just another one. So.
Hey man, I hear you, and I've only recently been releasing my stuff on YouTube, and the numbers there are very humbling. But it's okay. But it is Johnny Appleseed, because I'll find new viewers, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, you have good content, man. How come you have so few viewers? And I'm like, well, it's been an audio show for 15 years. I'm like, we're doing okay. Don't worry. We got an audience. Don't worry about it, man. We're new to video, but we do have an audience. Yeah. And I always appreciate you coming back. Let's talk about The World of Krypton was, you could argue, the first comic book miniseries, right?
I'm not going to argue with you. It was the first comic book miniseries.
There you go.
It was the first deliberate comic book miniseries. There have been many previously 2 and 3 issue runs that were not intended to be miniseries, but were canceled for whatever reason. World of Krypton was originally done as a 3-issue run arc and showcase, the Revive showcase in the late 70s. It came back in 77. I wrote the first 3 with the new Doom Patrol with me and Joe Staten again.
Oh, that's
Joe and I
excellent.
have Joe. I asked Joe to write the foreword to my writing comics book because I have worked with Joe from consistently throughout my career. We have worked together from starting back then in 77. I think the last thing we did together was like a year or 2 ago.
Wow.
So yeah.
Is Joe still doing Dick Tracy?
You bet he is. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I'm gonna hit you up for Joe contact information.
Oh, sure.
That's been a long time coming to talk to Joe and everything. So
absolutely,
that'd be great. So continue. Yes, about World of Krypton.
Yeah. So right, the showcase came along, so I did that, and the Power Girl arc by
in Showcase. Yes.
Yeah. Also by Joe.
Also Joe Staten. That's awesome.
And then came number 100, which was written by Levitz and me, who had written the previous 6 issues of Showcase, and Joe drew it, featuring every character that ever appeared in Showcase.
Wow, even the firefighters, as I recall.
Even the fireman Farrell, you bet. It was. You've never seen Showcase 100?
I remember it. I certainly remember seeing Lois Lane there, and the Flash, Green Lantern.
We did Crisis on Infinite Earths, and we did it in 1 issue, and nobody had to die. So. But anyway, so
Shining Knight, I believe, wasn't Shining Knight in there? And
no, that was Brave and Bold.
Oh, see, there you go. Very good, man. That's awesome. The Silver Age books that we mistake for the others. Absolutely. Well, and Strange Adventures and Mystery in Space. It's funny that the new Adam Strange book is titled Strange Adventures, obviously for the connection of the name, but really, no, he was in Mystery in Space. And Captain Comet's book was Strange Adventures.
Yeah, but Adam Strange first appeared in Showcase.
Of course.
Yeah. But anyway, so World of Krypton was done to be, I think, number 104 to 107 or so, 105 to 107. And after the book got canceled at 104. So that got put in the drawer. And then came the Superman movie. The Christopher Reeve Superman the movie.
Absolutely, yeah.
And DC was all set to do all kinds of tie-ins with it, do an adaptation of the movie, do novelizations, do this, do that, except they found out they couldn't. There was a contractual problem with Mario Puzo on the original screenplay, and so no adaptations of any kind could be done of the movie.
Amazing.
So somebody remembered the World of Krypton 3 issues in the drawer, and pulled it out, and I have the ad somewhere. I have a copy of it that it's labeled as a miniseries, the first for the first time, deliberately, a deliberate 3-issue mini run. So
standalone series. That's great, man. No, that's amazing.
Speaking of Chaykin, he penciled it, and
I always forget that Howard penciled it because it was so different from. His regular style. Yeah.
Well,
that's amazing.
Yeah. And Murphy Anderson inked the first 2, and Frank Chiramonte the third.
Wow, that's fantastic. I love Tex Blazel and Frank Chiramonte. I love hearing these names that I don't think I saw since the comic book cost 35 cents. So I appreciate hearing this. Yeah. That's amazing, man.
They were great guys. Tex was. I love Tex. He was a character. Used to hang out and work in the DC bullpen and just sit there inking, and I just sit and talk to him for hours.
That's great. Yeah. Cool. So would you, when you would submit scripts, would you submit them? Would you literally hand them in, or would you send them FedEx or whatever? How would you submit your stuff?
Well, early on there was no FedEx.
True.
When I started, I was living in New York, 1975. My first stuff was with Charlton Comics, so I did that through the mail here in Irving, Connecticut. I was in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And then I started writing for DC, so I would just, go into Manhattan and turn my stuff in. When I lived in Chicago, I had to do everything through the mail, which was nerve-wracking because all we had was, first-class postage.
Sure.
So,
any scripts get lost along the way? And any
I don't think
mishaps?
I don't think I had any problems. I think I was pretty lucky as far as that went.
There you go. 3 cheers for the post office, everybody.
Yeah.
There you go.
You know what? 99.99% of the time, I'm Jake with the post office.
I'm with you. No, I agree with you, man. It's a neglected and often mocked bureaucracy, but frankly, they get the job done. And I know a lot of Kickstarter people, and I'm sure including yourself, that are very thankful because they're a big arm of your distribution and everything. So
absolutely,
I can appreciate that.
Yeah. Wow. I appreciate it when I walk into the post office with a box of 100 envelopes to mail. But
Tommy,
if you've never walked into the post office with your Kickstarter thing to mail out in one fell swoop, and see the look on the clerk's face when they go, "Oh crap!"
Yeah. Well, that's honestly, Jimmy Palmiotti, who's been running successful Kickstarters for a long time. He says every now and then he buys his post office lunch for the day as a thank you.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, smart.
Yeah.
Good business because again, they're handling your merchandise and everything. So.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. And then you had another. Well, I was going to say while we were in the Superman world, because I love Bottled City of Kandor stories. So, did you do Nightwing and Flamebird stories?
I did Nightwing and Flamebird in Superman Family when it was a dollar comic.
Yes, indeed. I read all those, and man, I love that. Remind everyone give everyone the original Nightwing and Flamebird and the version that you wrote as well.
Well, the original Nightwing and Flamebird were Superman and Jimmy Olsen. That was the superhero IDs they took up when they went into the Bottled City of Kandor. And really great costumes. I think Kurt Swan drew the first one, so I would assume that he designed the costumes. Those great flying pelvic belts that they had.
Yeah. That kind of were where Superman's underwear would be, but and Flamebird was this beautiful orange costume, and it was kind of a blackish costume for Superman as Nightwing, and that's where Dick Grayson got the inspiration to come up with his name when he decided to give up the Robin thing. But all right, back to Nightwing and Flamebird in your run.
So there were a handful of Nightwing and Flamebird stories over the years. I don't know when they started, probably the early '60s, when Superman, my first job for I'm trying to remember. That's why I'm stammering.
No problem.
My first assignment at DC was a story for Superman Family. I think it was the first dollar issue. It was a World of Krypton story.
Cool. Love those.
And it was Clark telling Pete Ross's son about their version of Christmas on Krypton.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and it was Marshall Rogers penciled that. That was one of his early jobs. Yeah, and it was inked by Frank Springer.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. And Marshall also penciled and inked the final chapter of Nightwing and Flamebird that I wrote in Superman Family as well.
Okay.
But but in between, after I wrote that, I guess somebody decided to make it a regular feature in Superman Family to have a new incarnations of Nightwing and Flamebird. So they picked Akbar, who was a member of the Superman Revenge Squad. No, what was it?
Was it the Emergency Squad?
That's right, the Superman Emergency Squad. Yes, he had been established as they were guys in Kandor who, in case there was a problem, could they all had Superman costumes and could put on a Superman costume and come out of the bottle and replace Superman if necessary.
Real tiny. they weren't microscopic as they were in Kandor, but they were like, like almost action figure size.
Yeah.
Flying,
yeah.
like, and it was a squad of Kryptonians with Superman costumes. Again, classic Silver Age cheese that you gotta love.
Mort Weisinger Silver Age Superman.
Absolutely, man.
And so we made him Nightwing, and I think I forget the guy's name, the character's name, but I came up.
Go on and on, because I think I have a slightly, because again, I loved Paul. I bought all those Superman Family Dollar comics. I was so thrilled. Every feature was just fantastic.
Akbar
was actually Flamebird, and he was the former criminal that reformed and was proving himself as a hero. And his mentor was a member of the Superman Emergency Squad, and he was Superman's look-alike cousin. The name.
Right.
You remember his name? I got it if you don't. But I want, as a guy who, and I don't mean to put you on the spot. Forgive me.
No, I don't. I don't remember the name.
Van Z.
Van Z.
Yes, indeed.
Van Z. That's indeed. Right. Yeah. The Z. He was a cousin. It was the Z. We didn't talk about them very much. And
it was great because it really was just Superman in Kryptonian clothes, and it's like, well, his because again, this was the age of Patty Duke and identical cousins, so why not Superman having an identical cousin as well, Van Z? Hilarious.
I forgot all about
Hilarious.
That part of it. Yeah.
It was excellent, man. No, and that's again reading those original, and I don't know who wrote them, those Kurt Swan, Nightwing, and Flamebird stories, and all the Kandor stories were just the designs of Kandor, and it's the same thing with the Legion of Superheroes, which you also had a great run on. Those designs were fantastic. I mean, they were just classic space hero, Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers kind of things that were coming out of DC, and you couldn't help but love them as a 10 or 12-year-old kid.
Well, I mean, my 10 and 12-year-old kid era was like the mid '60s, which was also this astonishing time to be a fan, because 1967, 68, those were explosive years in comics. You had this, that's when Marvel got out from under independent news and could start publishing,
more titles.
Wealth of, they split, all the Tales to Astonish and Hulk, into Tales of Suspense that had Iron Man and Hulk. They got split to separate titles, and there was this big explosion at Marvel. DC was coming out with all kinds of weird and interesting stuff, and then as well, Brother Power of the Geek, and all that Joe Simon stuff.
Dead
whatever.
Man,
Man, there was just amazing stuff happening, and even the wrap up of the Doom Patrol in 1968.
Absolutely.
Where the heroes sacrifice themselves, to save people. Just amazing time to be a fan and a reader. So
absolutely.
So 10 years later, there I am returning the favor. It was fun.
That's awesome, man. And again, I'm glad you mentioned the Doom Patrol again, because that showcase three issues, that original story.
Yeah.
That cover with new Robot Man cradling the body of Silver Age Robot Man's body.
Yeah. I
mean, it's the same guy. It's still Cliff Steele.
Yeah.
But and the new characters that you created. We've talked about this before in a previous episode of the pod when the DC Universe Doom Patrol TV show was up and running. I'm really glad that they acknowledged your characters, and I know Grant did as well in his story, Grant Morrison.
Sure.
But it was really great to see the various incarnations of the Doom Patrol represented in that DC Universe TV show. I still think it's the best of the DC live-action shows. I think Harley Quinn is an excellent animated series, and Young Justice speaks for itself. But of all the live-action shows, I really think the home run was Doom Patrol so far.
I agree. I mean, even if I didn't have anything, any stake in the game, it really was well done. It really is, just it captures the characters. It's, a lot of the CW stuff has gotten to be a bit much. People ask me why you don't watch it anymore, and I say because I'm not an 11-year-old girl. You know, that's kind of the vibe I get from that stuff. But Doom Patrol, they, you know.
No, Doom Patrol was adult, and they kept it adult, and again, the way they wove in the 70s and 80s Doom Patrol was a great way of representing the characters. And again, there's their own tragedy if people haven't seen the series yet. You can buy the DVDs if you don't have DC Universe. It's great. It's so good, and the cast is wonderful. And honestly, I can't say enough great things about the TV show Doom Patrol. I'm curious to see how Stargirl pans out. I know that's coming out in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Interested to see that. It was a good series.
Did you watch the crossover on CW?
Some of it. And then I reached a point where I realized I really didn't give a crap what happened to any of these people.
Hilarious.
All these cardboard cutouts they've got standing up there spouting, ridiculous dialogue. Like, you know what? I think they need to be wiped out. So.
Well, when they decide to pull the plug, I think they got to call you up, and you might have a story ready for it. That's great.
Yeah, that's
funny.
I'm holding my breath, waiting to hear from Hollywood.
What else can we talk about, man? God, I was curious about your Aquaman run. I don't want to keep you too long either, Paul. If you want to, if you want to wrap, okay.
I'm quarantined. I've started growing a little beard. I have nothing to do.
I understand. That's fine. But yeah, I mean, we're all using. I mean, hell, man, I'm not wasting time. I'm recording a podcast, but it's great.
Right.
And also, I certainly hope we're helping you promote the Kickstarter. And even after you reach your goal, is there a way for people to? Let's take a moment to promote.
Certainly.
Because again, there's only a day and a half left as we're recording, and I'll do my damnedest to get this out Thursday evening, so people will have time to support it. But is there an after campaign where they can still order the book, pre-order the book?
Absolutely.
Is there a plan?
Absolutely. Yeah, you'll be able to. It'll be available on Amazon. It'll be available, through me for signed copies and things like that. So just keep an eye on my website, paulkupperberg.com, or on Facebook or Twitter. And I am not shy about going. So.
All right. Well, then I'm going to ask you a couple of Atlantis questions. We'll start with Aquaman because tell me about your Aquaman run.
Well, it was more of a stroll. I don't know if it was exactly a run. I was handed the last 2 issues to write, knowing it was canceled, which was just those stories were recently reprinted in the Death of a Prince hardcover. That was the Death of Aquababy story.
Aquababy, absolutely, man.
So if I didn't exactly kill it.
Was that an adventure or what book?
No, that was in the Aquaman. That was Aquaman's own title.
Oh, wow. Okay, sure.
Yeah, number 62 or 63 or so, somewhere around there.
Wow.
It was the Death of Aquababy. So if I didn't exactly kill him, I did plant them. But it started my comic book serial killer life. So.
How many characters? All right, so Vigilante, Aquababy. Who else have you killed?
Vigilante, Aquababy, Archie.
Well, of course, Archie. Yes, indeed. We'll talk about Archie in a second. Absolutely, man.
I killed a bunch of the Doom Patrol members at the end of my run to clear the. I think did I kill the Mad Thinker? I think I killed the Thinker in the Doom Patrol Suicide Squad crossover.
Okay.
I'll take you out. I don't care.
That's hilarious. That's fantastic, man. And of course, before we leave Atlantis, Arion, of course, your character.
Yes, Arion, Lord of Atlantis. That was an original series I created with Jan Duursema. Beautiful art.
Yeah, she's
absolutely
amazing.
Yeah. That ran for 3 years or so. Sword and sorcery set in ancient Atlantis. Lots of it was a lot of fun too. I mean, it's one of those things. I don't think DC will ever get around to reprinting it, which is a shame. But there's a few little like Arak. Roy's Arak. Did they ever? I don't think they ever reprinted that either. Did they?
No, I don't believe so. Wasn't that that was tied to. Was it? It was in the Tarzan comics, wasn't Eric? I know it was his own solo.
No. Eric was an original that he did. It was with Ernie Colon. It was an American Indian. Wound up, yeah. It was a fish out of water story. Eric was an American Indian character, I think.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
but yeah, there was a bunch of sword and sorcery at the time that DC did in the early mid '80s that we'll probably never see again.
For a time, Power Girl was retconned into being part of Arian's family.
Yeah, that was after the Crisis. Supergirl was gone, which was a shame because another monthly lost. I was writing it at the time.
So did you write it up until Crisis? There you go, man. Wow.
Yeah. I did that. I did it up till Crisis. I even did the DC Comics Presents Crisis issue with Supergirl. The last, like, flying off into the void story kind of thing.
Oh, was it like after her death in the Crisis series? I think it was just before. Yeah, it's in there. I forget the exact order. But. Understood. Wow, man.
But yeah, so without Supergirl, they figured, well, we'll keep Power Girl. We'll just retcon her into it somewhere. And it was Jerry Conway who came up with the tying her into Ariana Atlantis.
Oh, there you go. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So, the guy who created her said she should be Ariana's granddaughter, sent forward in time, blah, blah, blah.
That's outstanding, man. Very cool. All right, let's talk about Archie, because that got me reading Archie again. Your Life of Archie
cool.
Story, absolutely, man. I mean, I know Michael Uslan did the original miniseries, and that was a lot of fun. And half the book was dedicated to what if Archie married Veronica, and the other half was Betty. Two different lives. Great soap opera stuff in the finest tradition, man. I mean, my God, I remember Reggie was a newspaper reporter, wouldn't give up his sources, was being threatened with jail time for not disclosing that. Moose had his blind Alyssa Masters girlfriend that loved Moose for who he was, and it kind of who
was for mayor of Riverdale and Wynn.
I was gonna say,
Mayor Moose.
It turned Moose's life around. Absolutely, man. It was great. You honestly, your characterizations and the directions that you took the characters into in their adult years, amazing stuff. I gotta tell you that, you often hear writers say, like, I tried to do this to my character, but they resisted me. And you always go, wow, that's bullshit and pretentious. Honestly, when I was writing this, I mean, the Archie characters are so well crafted. You don't realize it because you're used to seeing them in these little, 6-page humor stories. But the first time I wrote Archie first, classic teenage humor Archie, and I sat down to write it, and it was there. I knew who these characters were. I'd been reading them all my life. I knew who Archie was. I knew what motivated them. I knew what I understood them. And so when it came time to write this Life with Archie stuff, where I had to, take them from out of the world of, the punchline 6-pager and into, an ongoing storyline, it was easy. They were there. It was like, and I really did try to mess with Reggie. I wanted to make him the high school jock loser. That guy who winds up, he leaves college and realizes that the best years of his life were when he was, playing football in high school. Wow.
It was just, me being a geek wanting to get revenge on those assholes. But Reggie's not an asshole.
No.
And Reggie wouldn't let me treat him like an asshole. And every time I tried to write him into a position where he would do the asshole thing, I couldn't do it. I was just like, no, that's wrong. That's not right. And I had that, in some form or another with all the characters. My favorite guy to write was Jughead, who I was convinced from the start was the smartest guy in Riverdale.
That's outstanding. Go on. I agree. His very entertaining stories for both the Betty side of the story and the Veronica side of the story.
Yeah.
Two different destinies for Jughead. Go on.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and, it just I wrote a Jughead solo story for the humor stuff for one of the digests, and the story is they're rooting around in Jughead's attic looking for something, and somebody finds an old treasure map that looks like it's from the 1930s. And Jughead goes, "Oh yeah, there were rumors that John Dillinger stopped by the house here. Grandpa met Dillinger or something, and that he might have buried his loot in the backyard." Well, this is Dillinger's map. So they spend the rest of the afternoon digging up the backyard looking for the treasure. And in the end, it turns out that Jughead planted the map there because they're putting in a new septic system, and he was supposed to dig for the septic. So he just sat back and and ate burgers while the gang dug up the yard for him.
I love In Life with Archie, and they are collected so people can read them. But Jughead gets Midge, which is like, yeah, man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because you always, it was always this weird little tangent in the stories where occasionally Jughead would be like, really into Midge, and that was excellent. And then in the other story, he gets with Big Ethel. He and Ethel get together.
With Ethel, yeah.
Which is terrific, and that's a nice redemption for poor Ethel. And I mean, certainly the way that she was written in the old days and stuff, and the difference, but also all the soap opera stuff you put in there. Mr. Weatherby and Ms. Grundy finally get together, and
yes, they get married,
and it doesn't end well.
No, she is ill and she dies, and and one whole issue is just the story is just them, everybody sitting in the waiting room, waiting to hear what's going to happen, and telling stories about Miss Grundy and what they did and what she did for them.
And then poor Cheryl Blossom has a tough turn.
Breast cancer. Yeah. There was the gay marriage issue. There was of
course Kevin
violence stories. Yeah.
Yes. And then leading into the death of Archie, where Archie takes a bullet for Kevin. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Archie, that was my very first Archie story was. It was just a 6-pager or something. Archie is volunteers to take Mrs. Lodge's dog, pick up Mrs. Lodge's dog from the groomer and get it to the dog show in time. That's the premise. Archie is so eager to help. He falls over himself in his eagerness to be a good guy and to be helpful, and that's where all the humor comes from. Archie spends the whole 6 pages trying not to let the dog get dirty because he's such a klutz. And he's trying so hard. That's it. That's all you need to know about Archie.
Wow.
He is the guy who will do anything for a friend.
Yeah.
Anything, including take a bullet.
When I've enjoyed what Mark Waid and Brian Gustin have been doing as well in the decades Archie stories. And I give John Goldwater and all the Archie crew a hell of a lot of credit. That it started really with Life with Archie, the married life, in terms of,
absolutely.
Everyone's suddenly going, hey, have you seen what's going on at Archie? And it led to Riverdale, the TV show, and all the newfound success for Archie. And I really, and also, man, you work with one of my favorite artists in comics that we sadly lost far too early, and that's Norm Brayfogle.
Yeah, Norm did a run. He was doing both arcs for a while. Yeah. A lot of pages, 48 pages a month. Great stuff. Just great, solid. He got the Archie style, but there was all that dynamic, really human action that he put into it. It was great stuff.
Absolutely, yes, and a very a good homage to a Dan DeCarlo, Stan Goldberg sort of Archie look.
Sure.
But also, yes, very much his own design. And like you said, it's just like I just had a conversation with Judd Winnick about his all-age books, Hilo. And, and I mean, Judd is a Bigfoot cartoonist and has kind of a Charles Schultz, Bill Watterson style to his stuff.
Right.
But he is also comes from DC and Marvel, and when it's time for action, can give you a dynamic action, panel with the Bigfoot style of Watterson and Schultz influences and stuff. So it's a really interesting combination. And yeah, Norm's stuff, was definitely different from your classic Archie look that Dan Parent does so well these days. I mean, it's
that was one of the big things about Life with Archie, was it kind of not only unleashed what you could do with the characters, on a story level, but the art. It's kind of like you can break free of that. Stan Goldberg and Dan DiCarlo, nobody better. I was very lucky. Stan drew a few of my humor Archie stories.
That's excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, it's like, Kurt Swan is drawing your Superman. Stan Goldberg is drawing your Archie.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, these guys are great, but, there's, now you can see what you can do with that style, even if you, get it out of the pure cartooning into the more realistic stuff.
Totally. No, I agree with you, man. Very, very cool. Paul, I'll tell you, I wish you nothing but luck with this book. I think, again, you're one of the go-to guys that know what they're talking about in terms of craft, and you've shown it in all these various genres that we've discussed. And, I am happy to help you promote it, and also, again, direct people to your website, which, once again, give the URL for your website.
It's paulkupperberg.com.
That's simple. And really, check out his blog entries and script samples, and again, reproductions of past stories that he's done over the years, book pitches for various things. Really a great writer resource of how to do it and how to do it right. So,
in my desperate attempt for attention, I've managed to do some good.
Hey, man, I'm always happy to see you at Terrificon and other conventions when we're at the same place. And, we'll get through this status quo the best that we can and come out the other end. And hopefully I will see you when, public events are happening again. So
looking forward to it.
All the best, dude. And as always, a great conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, John. We should do this again, but, new stuff next time.
That's Paul Kupperberg. Check out his Kickstarter and go to his website, because when the Kickstarter is over, you'll be able to order the book as well for when it's ready. And I'm happy to help him out, because I think he's one of the smartest editor-writers that comic books have ever had. As you could hear from the discussion, all the various genres that Paul has written in, he gets it done. He knows what he's doing. And it was a pleasure to talk to him. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Man, if you haven't checked out Word Balloon, I'm churning out all these podcasts incredibly fast. And some, if you're only seeing the first or second most fresh episodes, make sure you look and really scroll down. Because, if you weren't already aware, I also released this great Star Trek podcast panel discussion I had live on YouTube and Facebook. The audio of that with John Lehman and J.K. Woodward, David Gallagher, my buddy Scott Larson, and Cully Hamner. We all talked about Star Trek, new and old, what we liked, what we didn't like. I was outnumbered. Mostly they were pro new Trek. Very interesting stuff. I did another lockdown trivia quiz the day before on April 1st, and it was no April Fool, with Joshua Hale Fialkoff and his wife Christina Rice. Old Hollywood, the Beatles, horror among the quiz show topics. And we played a great game, and I think it's worth your attention. Also, earlier, to wrap up March, great conversations with Judd Winnick and Terry Beatty. Judd told us all about the discussion that happened when they were considering killing Dick Grayson in Infinite Crisis. I know that's a sore spot for a lot of people. It was great to hear Judd's point of view on that debate as it was happening as they were mapping out Infinite Crisis at DC. Terry Beatty, the wonderful artist who, man, I loved Ms. Tree growing up. It was one of the best and first crime comics I was exposed to. Him and Max Collins, it was so great. And he still continues to do wonderful work today in comic strips. He is doing the Rex Morgan MD soap opera comic strip. Pretty cool stuff, and a great conversation about the black and white boom and bust of the 80s and other things that led to him getting into the comic strip business. Rob Salkowitz talked about the impact of the COVID virus on the business of pop culture. That was released on March 27th. And you can keep scrolling down. So many wonderful conversations. Joe Casey talked to us. Stephanie Phillips. Dan Slott. a couple conversations with Tom King, another quiz with Tom King and the the Benson sisters. Elsa Chartier talked about November. So really, it's a full month. And if you just scroll down and check out what you missed in March, there's a lot of great episodes for you to listen to during this tough time. I hope you'll take advantage of it. Thanks again for listening to Word Balloon today. More great stuff coming up on the weekend. And as always, thank you, League of Word Balloon listeners, for your support. Thank you, Patreon, for your support as well. Again, it's a tough time, but, you guys are helping out, and things are going okay for Word Balloon. But if you can help, that would be great. Until next time, Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions, copyright 2020.